On this episode of Content Sessions, we're talking with Deep Mehta about Ctrl V. Thanks so much for coming on the show.
Thanks for having me.
Perfect. Yeah, tell us what is Ctrl V.
So Ctrl V is actually North America's first virtual reality arcade. So it was started back in approximately June 2016 out of Waterloo. I am a franchise owner. I'm not an owner of the franchise itself. So it was started by three gentlemen in Waterloo who saw this as kind of the next generation of gaming entertainment. And they've been running it since. And their plan was never really to franchise, but they had a lot of people kind of knocking on their doors saying, "Hey, we want to do this too." And so, about a year or so later, they started to franchise. So now there's about, I think at current count, we're at 17 locations, mostly in Canada, mostly Southern Ontario, 8 or 9 in Southern Ontario, 4 in Alberta, 3 in the US, 1 in Costa Rica. So, they're constantly looking, they're constantly getting more and more people asking for them. So I own the location here in Brampton, Ontario.
Got it. And how did you get involved with the project?
I spent 20 years in sales and marketing, just for different tech companies, and had a good run, made good money. Things were pretty good, and then decided that I just was kind of getting bored with what I was doing. I was with Xerox for the past, for the previous 5 years, and just wanted a new challenge, wanted to do something different. So my wife suggested that I try a completely different industry. So I went to a logistics company, a rather large one. I won't name them because I don't have great things to say about them. But after 2 months, it just wasn't the right fit. I could see major problems, and we just made some mutual decisions to part ways. At that point, my wife said, "You know what? You've been looking at this VR thing for a while. You've been thinking about it for a while. Why don't you just go for it and see what happens?" And particularly, there was a few different brands I was looking at. There's quite a few different types of VR out there in terms of arcades or something called free roam VR. So I went to Australia to visit a company about bringing their tech here, particularly. Pretty amazing tech, but super expensive, and just couldn't make the numbers work. And I had known about Ctrl V since I had that trip a year and a half, 2 years ago, or 3 years ago, I guess now, and started to explore and decided that the investment was worth the time. And took about a year to get all the paperwork, find the location, tons of municipal problems, just because it's an industry or a business they don't understand yet.
Sure. Yeah.
And so lots of little, had to go get minor variances and all kinds of weird stuff with the city. But yeah, so, and then we opened up in late, like last week of August in 2018.
Very cool. And so tell me a little bit about the experience in the space. How does it work?
Yeah, so essentially you're in our facility. It's very kind of got a very futuristic vibe to it. When you walk in, it's a lot of LED lighting. It's a bit more of a darker environment. We've got this like space looking floor that we put in there. What happens is you come in, you book a space on either online, or you can do a walk-in if you want. It is best to book online, just because, especially our busier times at the weekend, like you might walk in and we're fully booked. So you book a spot online, come on in. There's a short video that we watch that explains how we use all the equipment. So that's done outside of your 1 hour game time. Sorry if I didn't mention that, you're booking an hour game slot. And then you come in, and if you have friends, it's best that everyone book their own station, just because we can connect you guys together, and you can play games together as well, which is kind of neat. So you go into a station, which is a 10 by 10 kind of booth, which has a padded floor on it, so you don't hurt yourself if you do fall at all. But it's very rare that people do fall. You put a headset on, and you've got 2 controllers in your hands, and you control the entire environment with your controllers. in your hands. So you can pick and choose games as you wish. There's 50 different games to choose from. So a lot of choice in terms of genres, everything across the board, sports games, zombie shooters, creative games, all kinds of different stuff, music-based games, just so that there's a little bit for everyone there. So
Sure.
no one's definitely going to be bored. And then we find that the most fun, people seem to have the most fun are the ones that do the multiplayer games. Playing games with your friends seems to be, when you get to throw if you're playing Smashbox Arena, you throw a dodgeball at your friend and you knock him in the head. It's a whole lot more satisfying than than shooting
A
one of the
robot.
box. Yeah, exactly.
Makes
So yeah,
sense.
that's pretty much what it is. It's a 1 hour booking. It goes very fast, especially for the people that are there for the first time. We hear it all the time. People come out like, "That's an hour?" Like, yeah, that's an hour. So it just really does fly by.
Very cool. Yeah, I haven't been into an actual space that does it, but I got a chance to try a VR, one of the more basic experiences at my cousin's the other week, and now I'm like super turned on to the idea. I mean, it's just a
Right.
whole new. You don't realize how immersive the world is and how much your brain gets tricked into being in an environment until
Exactly.
you're in it and you're looking around and you're getting paranoid about where these robots are coming from. So,
Exactly.
yes, it's quite neat.
And
Very
that's
cool.
part of our problem. That's part of our challenge is that everyone's heard of VR because we hear it in the news all the time. But the challenge right now is nobody knows, or very few people know, that there are places you can go like ours to actually go and have an experience without buying thousands of dollars worth of equipment, without
Right.
setting up a room in your house to do VR, all that kind of stuff.
Got it. Is that so? And I'm guessing that is obviously it's a barrier for you in terms of the discovery of who you are and what you're about, and what the service is. But would you say that, like, what is most of your booking now? Is it birthday parties? Is it corporate events? Is it just like people that know about it and come in as a group? Like, what's your biggest driver of business
Yeah.
now?
So on the weekends, it's definitely we're definitely birthday party heavy on the weekends. During the week, it's more, friends coming in, a couple people, 4 or 5 people, like it's a group, small groups. We do corporate events. We have a bunch of those that happen as well. That's a space that I really want to push into a bit more, just because I think there's a whole entire world that is looking for different interesting things to do in that space. And coming from that world for 20 years, I know that I was that guy that was always delivering the sports tickets to my customers to have them come out to our sporting events, like the Leafs games or whatever. And I saw a very big shift from, 15, 20 years ago when I first started doing it to the last few years. And when I first started doing it, I was that sales guy that was always like, yeah, come out and try to build that relationship. Um, People would jump the moment you offer them a box seat. They were like, yes. They weren't even like, let me check my calendar. It was an immediate yes. And then the last few years, what I noticed is that the same people get asked over and over and over again, because it's always the decision makers or the owners of the business or someone in the position of power, and they are bored to tears with going to the box.
Hmm.
It's an experience they've had 1,000 times. And when if you were to ask them, hey, um, you know 3 sessions ago, who took you? They couldn't tell you.
Right.
Right. And so my spiel to the corporate guys right now is like, well, the reason why you do this is to have an experience that is memorable and something that you are going to have something in unique content with your customer. And I can guarantee you the vast majority of your customers have never tried VR.
Yeah.
And you're not going to forget the first time you do it.
Yep. Yeah, that makes total sense. Yeah, I mean, it's a, once you go in it the first time, you understand, like, and it's funny because as you go in, I found the one like big takeaway for me was like the the thought of where it could go, thought of like how deep is this going to get and how big, and it's like it just seems endless once you have the computing power to simulate more real life things. So
Yeah, I mean, one of our experiences called Richie's Plank experience. It just simulates like a heights experience. So you go into an elevator, you go up into a building, 100 floors in the sky, and then the doors open up, and it's just a plank of wood out the side of the building, and you have to walk that plank. And what's shocking to me is that it's all computer graphics, right? It's not photorealistic. It doesn't look like you're actually in a building per se if you sit there and analyze it,
Right.
but it still freaks everybody out. I have so many people that just can't bring themselves even to take one step out. And even though they're on solid ground, they just can't do it. They hit the ground floor and they come back down.
Yeah, absolutely. And so how are you getting the corporate side? I'm going to do as we talk. I'm going to bring up the website and like scan around so people can see what it's about. But
Sure.
how are you thinking about getting corporate now? Are you kind of trying to get people from your previous relationships? Are you reaching out to people that offer different corporate experiences? How are you thinking about that?
Yeah, right now, I mean, most of our experiences have come through word of mouth initially. We've we're reaching out to local Brampton businesses right now in surrounding areas, just to let them know, hey, that a place like this exists. And so we're getting a little bit of traction from that as well now, as people are kind of looking at it, going, hey, that's interesting. That might be something we're interested in doing.
Hmm.
We've had some big names come and do events at our place. Like BlackBerry has an office in Mississauga, and they did their Christmas event at our place last year.
Okay, very
Castle,
cool.
Castle Building Centers, um, Mircon Electrical Group. So there's some bigger companies that have come out. So it's not that we're talking about people that have like little tiny companies. Like people know that this is out there. Um, it's we're in the same, and I say this a lot. We're in the same kind of dilemma that I think escape rooms were in about 10 or 12 years ago,
Hmm.
right? You told somebody 10 or 12 years ago, I'm going to a room where they're going to lock me in, and I'm going to pay them so that I can get out, and they looked at you funny, right? Now, I've never been to one myself personally. I've never been to an escape room, but I know exactly what it is. And I
Yep.
think I think the majority of people are in that same boat where even if they've never been to one, they at least know what it is. So if you decide one day, I want to, you know what, let's do that. Let's do that with the family. You're going to sit down and Google an escape room. Nobody sits down right now, or very few people sit down right now to Google a VR arcade because they just don't know it's a thing yet.
Sure. Yeah, and that is a barrier where the search query doesn't match the volume that you need to bring it in.
Right.
So one thing that pops to mind immediately, and I don't know if you've played with Facebook ads at all,
Yeah, we do.
a little bit. Um, so here's a way to think about it that I think will enhance the experience. So a lot of people kind of go onto Facebook, they make a post and they boost their post because it's about some experience. The challenge with that is it gives you a really limited amount of targeting capabilities and you're not using the full breadth of what the ads are capable of.
Right.
So one thing I recommend, and I don't know if you do this at a corporate level or you could literally do it at the individual level that you're, the location level,
Yeah.
is if you create an account, an actual business manager account through Facebook, so business.facebook.com, you can move your Facebook page into it and create an ad account from there. What that ad account allows you to do is it opens up your targeting parameters by a pretty substantial margin. So
Yes.
the ability to target people that already have an interest in VR or brands of the headset or those types of things with hey, and it could just be a video that you pull together, with like a little bit of an experiential shot. So bunch of people moving around in the space, and then it flips over to like a map of like, this is where we're located, come check us out. So stuff like that. And then I think from the one I think that you would get some really good traction with is like, I think this would be a great thing for families, and I just don't think they understand it yet. It's the same thing, like they take their kids to those big play areas, right, where they
Mm-hmm.
just let them in like it's like a child zoo and they just run around. But I think if the parents were to be able to participate, they'd be less bored. Like they just pay $20 and put them in a space and they run around till they're tired, and the parents are all there on their phone. They have nothing to do. This might be a great experience to get everybody like in on the action, similar to the way like a mini golf would feel.
Right. So we do have a business account and we do run campaigns. We don't do boost
Yeah.
posts because of exactly what you just said. You know, the fact that um, you know, you have a lot more targeting capability. So that is something that we're doing actively. The issue that I have the most problem with is there's too freaking much targeting capability,
Mm,
and you know, what to use, what not to use. So we find ourselves kind of testing the waters with different things all the time, and you know, trying to see, okay, do we get much traction with that? Did we get much traction with that because it was the right time of year, or was it because of the right targeting? You
yeah.
know, there's a lot of questions around, is what we're doing exactly the right thing?
Got it. Yeah. So to simplify that in a way, so we run ad spends for businesses. We've spent up to $50,000 a month on some accounts. So we've got experience kind of at all levels of spend. We've got people that are spending $1,000 a month. So the best way to do it is to come up with the ad, the visual, and the words within two variants of each other. So it might be one video that's like, you have somebody come in for a day, or you hire a student or grab someone off Kijiji to come film, parents and kids interacting with the space, having them record a video testimony. Even if you say like, hey, I'll let three families come in for free if we can like film the experience, right? Get a bunch of filming stuff in action, have the kids do like some video on, oh, I liked it because of this, and then mom says, well, I wasn't expecting it and it was kind of cool. Like, get a bit of a video testimonial. If you were to create kind of a 30 to 40 second ad of like the experience of being in the space, I think that visual will do better for you than any picture would. So I would think about creating that. And then the thing you might test, so you can use, when you're making the ad, you can use dynamic creative. So what dynamic creative does, it's like a little checkbox when you're selecting the type of creative you're going to use. What it
Right.
does is you say, I want this picture, which is like a family hanging out in the space. Then I want this video. So here's my two visual creatives. And then I want to try this ad copy where it's like, looking for something fun to do with your family, da 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 da. And then I want to try another copy that's a little bit more, whatever, quirky or funny, or you know what I mean?
Whatever.
So
Yeah.
when you run it as dynamic, what it'll do is it'll take all the different pictures and all the different words, and test them in all the different combinations of each other automatically.
Okay.
And you can run that for like 30 or 60 days. And then you can get a feel of, okay, what was the image and what was the copy that people resonated with the most? And you might find that there's like the perfect combination ad. Once you
Okay.
discover which one that is, you'll see which one performs, got the best rate of click through and all that stuff. And then once you have that data, then I would take that winning combination and I would turn that into an ad that you leave on all the time. We find the best ads are ads that you just leave on forever at $5 a day, and they're always attracting new people. And if you're not bidding much higher than $5 a day, the likelihood that you're going to saturate the people in your neighborhood is a lot less. If you're
Right.
at $20 a day and your target audience is only 60,000 people or whatever, like eventually they're going to get pummeled with the ad. But if you're just running it at $5 a day,
Right.
you'll get a lot of new discovery out of it. And especially once you find that winning, like, oh, you know what, it was this video with the funny text and people are really resonating because whatever the reason, you're never going to know why.
Right.
But you can at least test it using the dynamic creative piece,
Right.
and get an answer on what it is. What I'd recommend from there, so say that's a 60-day test. I do 3 different visuals and 3 different ad copies, and we run that for 60 days. And we say, okay, this is the top 1 or 2 ads that outperformed everything else. And you can run it at like $5 a day, $150 a month, or a little bit more. But that's a good enough budget to get an idea for the geography that you're sampling.
Okay.
So once you find that, like, hey, it's this video and then it's this quirky text, what you want to do is you want to create a post using those 2 elements. So do you know, when you're in the ad manager, you
Mhm.
can create an ad inside of the ad manager in the
Right.
the third step, but you
Right.
can also go into if you go into the main menu there, so outside of Ad Manager, there's a thing called Page Posts.
Okay.
So what you want to do is upload that video and upload that ad copy, the one that won for you, and create it as a post. So
Okay.
outside of the Ad Manager, create it as a post. So what it's going to do, and the post, you check it off saying like, I'm not posting this on Facebook. I'm only using this as an ad. There's like an option that you're only using it as an ad.
Okay.
Once you create that, it's going to give you an ID, a post ID.
Okay.
So what you want to do with that is you want to have one ad that's driving traffic to the website, and you want to have one ad that's driving, when you're choosing that first option, you can choose the engagement type of ad.
Right.
So the engagement ads are really good for getting likes and comments and shares. They're going to find people that are more likely to comment or like a post than they are to click on an actual URL or on a button.
Okay.
So you want to run the exact same piece of creative, one as an engagement ad and one as a traffic ad. Does that make sense?
Okay. Yeah.
The reason you do that is because if you're using the same post ID that was created, so you go into your Ad Manager, you choose engagement, you choose your geo and your targeting, and then when you're in the ad section, it says, do you want to create another ad or do you want to use an existing post?
Right.
You choose, I want to use an existing post, and you enter that number.
Right. So those who are getting hit by it with engagement are causing more natural, organic growth, and those who are getting hit by traffic are clicking.
Correct. But the benefit of using the same post ID on both is the likes and comments and shares that you get in the engagement one are going to show up in the traffic one.
Right. Okay. Okay.
And so that formula could be $5 a day on the traffic ad, $2 or $3 a day on the engagement ad, and like that could literally be the only ad you ever run.
Interesting. Okay. Now, in terms of things like video versus pictures, I've always been of the impression that video does better than pictures. What's your take there?
Yeah, I would say that 75% of the time we see the same thing. It does depend. So it performs better because it gets more eyeballs. But if the video is not great, then those performance metrics don't actually help. I've seen mediocre video get a lesser click-through rate than an image.
Mm-hmm.
I always like to test them against each other just for the sake of, for whatever reason, it might just resonate in a certain way. But I mean, if you can create a video in like a pretty standard format, like introduce the brand, introduce who the target audience is for, like obviously have a video of like who this is for, show some experience, show them talking about it, like video testimonial style, and then say, hey, come book. Like that's a really great formula for success. What a lot of people do is they'll try and cobble together stock imagery or just things that don't make it a comprehensive piece of video. And when it doesn't have the direction of like, so you have to stop somebody in their tracks and be like, oh, this is interesting. I'm going to stop and watch. Right. And then you have to address, is this for you? Oh, it is for me. I'm a family in Brampton. Cool. I know this ad's for me now. I'll keep watching. Oh, now we're going to do this crazy experiential and all my family's participating. Cool. I know it's something I can take my family to. And then the family's talking about it, saying whatever they're going to say. So that brings that whole picture together and really makes people resonate.
Yeah, we've got a couple of videos that that head office have created for us professionally. One of them I think is too long. It's more about the experience and a lot of imagery about people playing, and there are testimonials, like everything that you discussed. But it's like a minute 30. And then there's another one they've created, similar concept, but specifically for birthday parties, and that's 40 seconds.
Got it. Yeah, and so the 40 seconds is a good time. I would say if you've got access to the video and you can just chop out some of the middle, some of the gameplay. I have a feeling that that's probably what went on too long, like too many action shots of this and this and that. There doesn't have to be a ton of that, but yeah, I would say 40 seconds is a good sweet spot. We've seen video perform really well at that length. And then also thinking about how can I potentially dump some text over top of it to like really solidify it, right? Like they probably, I don't know, do the existing videos have copy on them?
Yeah, there's some copy
Yeah.
on them.
And so maybe just splashing in something about the fact that it's Brampton. And one thing that we really focus on, or even addressing it in the ad copy, we like to address the audience, so it gives them a chance to stop and understand that this is for them. So, hey, Brampton families. Hey, Brampton moms. Hey, Brampton schools. That type
Right.
of thing, where, because there's so many different visual things that are popping in front of you. So we like to kind of stop them in their tracks by using some ad copy at the front of it, like right at the top. Hey, Brampton moms. Oh, shoot, I'm a Brampton mom. What is this? Okay,
Right.
this is something I can take my family to. So starting with something like that will often at least help and let the video play for a little bit longer, and then get a bit of a better chance of having them
Right.
come onto it.
So in terms of targeting, like how wide, not wide, how direct, how narrow do you put this thing? Because I've tried. So for example, I run a birthday party ad where we take a look at people that have birthdays upcoming and that kind of stuff, and we put it like 90 days window, and then put that as the target.
Mhm.
And then friends with people within 90 days. So, if a parent has a friend one of the kids is a friend, then show on both sides. So that, I mean, but then you look at it and go, am I going too narrow? Am I like blocking other things from showing up, right?
Sure. So what I would say about the friends with birthdays is it doesn't work that well for kids.
Yeah. Oh,
Because
not on Facebook.
if the 12-year-old isn't on there, then there's not going to be a way for it to know that there's a birthday coming up. I like it for adult experiences. Oh, my friend Jen, who whose birthday it is, so it'll work better that way. Um, the way that I would structure it is probably just targeting parents.
Yeah.
So there's a demographics. There's a I think it's a I don't think it's a
There's
yeah, it's
parents
one of
by
the
different age
demographic
groups.
thing.
There's parents by different age group as well. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you can say
Um,
like, 8 above kind of thing.
Yeah, I would so my the best way to run Facebook ads is when you have data, right? So what I mean by that is, say I have a list of previous customers and I dump those people into Facebook and make an audience from them, and then I can try and target them and the people around them. So
Yeah.
that can work.
So we've
But when
done
you're
that as
going,
well.
yeah, so when you're going to,
We've got an entire list of data that we use to create TVs, and use that. Um,
yeah.
we've tried that as well.
Now,
Yeah.
when you're so the challenge when you're using that is, are you within your ads, is your website then tracking a conversion, a booking, or any type of conversion action on the back end?
So yeah, we've got Facebook Pixel
Yep.
installed, so we can see that if we've got the Pixel tagged to the ad, which we always do.
Perfect.
Um, I'm not 100% sure. I mean, I gotta look more into it. I'm not 100% sure that it's actually tracking everything properly.
Got it.
Um, so the pixel has to be created by head office since they run the website. Um, Let me rephrase that. I don't know if it's not tracking right. It's more so the people click on it, they go to the website, they don't necessarily book. But
Right.
Facebook still shows it up as a conversion because it's gone through to the website.
Oh,
Right.
yeah.
Um, so I don't know if that's like, well, that's my thought process on it. I'm not saying that's actually what's happening,
Right.
because when I've looked at it in the past, and I see a birthday party ad that I've run, and I see 10 people clicked on, I'm like, well, I didn't get 10 birthday parties this past week, so
Right.
what happened, right?
Got it. Yeah. Yeah. And it becomes a bit of a challenge when you don't have control over the pixel. What I would do is, if you can have them set up a way, so say a booking does come through online, how do most of the bookings happen? Is it by phone or is it by online?
We don't do any bookings over the phone, so it's
Got it.
either in person or online.
Okay.
So people can
Perfect.
call in I mean, we do get people calling in asking questions and just like, hey, how exactly does this work? And, that kind of stuff.
Yep.
And then, direct them to just click on the website and pick the time that's best for them, kind of thing.
Got it. So what I'd recommend is I would have them add a layer. So you've got your page view pixel fire. So like I land on a page and a page is viewed. So I come in and I go to 3 pages. Mike Moll sees this ad and I click on the website and I go to the about us and then the birthday party page. So now I've done 3 pages. So those are page view. What I would suggest is at the end of them making the booking online, there should be a way to make the pixel have an event called like purchase or completed registration or something.
Okay.
If you have that pixel firing when an actual reservation happens, you can actually track all the way from the beginning to the end of the ad. So ad got a click, it had 4 page views, and then it had an event fire that was called purchase or completed registration. You can call it whatever you want, but adding that
Yeah.
layer to get a true sense from the conversion side, especially when you're not limited by like, oh, I don't know if they called, or I don't know if most of the bookings are happening online, then um, that will help solve those
Okay.
solve those
So yeah, like
problems.
our Pixel, when I do turn it on, like one of the events is called purchase. So this,
Right.
I guess that's something I need to clarify with head office is like, when is that firing? Is that firing at the end, or like where's that happening?
Yeah, because if you don't have that data, then all the clicks that you're getting, it's just not as meaningful, right? You could be getting an ad that gets clicks at 50 cents a click,
Hmm.
and so you're like, wow, I'm getting all this traffic, and then you might have something that's getting $1.17 a click, but it's converting every 5 clicks. You're like, okay, that's the one we got to focus on. So
Right.
having that extra layer of data can let you make the decisions on, are these ads working. It sounds like a lot of the strategies and all the things that you've implemented already, it seems like you have a really strong handle on how they should work. And I think that missing piece, that is that purchase actually firing at a reservation, will let you understand, are the ads doing what they should be doing.
Right.
One other thought actually is, so now you can build an audience based on people that go onto certain pages of the website, right? So people that went to the birthday party page. What I would do is I would have another ad that's like, so, and you can, if you go into the business manager, into the audiences section.
Hmm.
So I want to build an audience that is people that went to the birthday party page who did not purchase.
Right. And then retarget.
Retarget. And that could be, you could do that. Like it could, the ad, obviously the ad has to be different. And I don't know for you what makes the most sense, if that's a value proposition, if it's a video testimonial of a birthday, is it a, hey, get a
Hey, book now before you
promotional.
miss your time.
Yeah, yeah, or that, yeah, just a time crunch thing. I think
Hmm.
adding that layer in, because you got to remember that a lot of parents, especially when they're on social, like when I'm Googling, I want a birthday party idea for my kid, I'm like researching, right?
Hmm.
If I'm a parent of a kid, has a kid of whatever age, and I see this thing and I'm like, ooh, I really like this idea for me, or I like this idea for my friend's kid, or I heard them say something about VR, we got to do it, right?
Right.
You got to remember the pattern on Facebook is like you're interrupting me checking my gossip and my news and stuff. So I've
Right.
gone to the website, but I might be distracted. I might have something else going on. If I'm a parent, I'm often getting called away to do different things. So by sending that additional layer of messaging, especially because you've paid money for that first interaction, it's really important to re-engage with them, just because again, it might be that they moved on and they weren't interested in you, but it also very well could be that they just got distracted or whatever, and they just, well, what was that website I was on? I don't remember. It was a Facebook ad, and if they don't see anything ever again, then it becomes, I think there's missed opportunity by not sending out that other layer of content.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. That's good.
But
Um,
yeah, to answer your other question, was when you're thinking about all these different targeting parameters, because you're a single location, I would actually use the least amount of demographics and behavioral targeting or interest targeting that you can. I would pick like one thing, because
hmm, okay.
your audience isn't going to be in the millions of people anyway. Like if you're like, hey, someone within a 3-mile radius of our building, like that number might be small anyway. So if it's like parents in that radius and your target audience is 75,000, 100,000, that's fine. I wouldn't go less, but what I can tell you is the more layers you add into the targeting, the more expensive it gets, and you don't really know you can make a guess, but it's better because you can afford to actually hit everybody in that pool of people. I would leave it open ended and let it decide, like let people decide if they like it or not. If you were trying to market across Canada or across North America, you would have to try and get really refined really quick, because then the targeting options are way
Yeah,
too big. But when you're in a single location and you can drive people that way, I would just do a geographic border with like one interest targeting or one demographic targeting, and just let it run, and just let people see. Let you don't know who's going to respond to it. And the you know the kid who the teenager who's got a bunch of friends that are going to come in, they might not have an interest in VR or a technology. Maybe they're into zombies. But I would say, because of your small radius, I think you can actually leave it pretty open ended, and it'll do better that way.
yeah, and it's interesting you mentioned that, because we do find so many of the people that come in aren't necessarily gamers.
Yeah.
And VR is like remarkably simple to control. And I think a lot of people in their initial reaction is like, oh, it's a big gaming thing. It's going to be harder than a PS4, which is, got a million buttons on the controllers, which is not the case. You've
Hmm.
got four buttons on the controllers, and most games just use one or two. So very simple to
Right.
control, very natural feeling. And so as a result of that, we have a lot of people that you wouldn't necessarily think of as gamers. I've got some regulars that come in, and they're in their 50s, and they're not like playing Call of Duty at home or anything like that.
Yeah.
They just enjoy this.
Yeah.
So yeah, but yeah, like you're saying, like if you target too hard, I think especially that's why, like, targeting someone who has an interest in VR, to me, is already going to be likely that they own a VR set.
Hmm.
So are they going to come out for it?
Right.
Unless they want to have a bunch of friends play together, it's a hit or
Yeah.
miss.
Yeah, and what you said there tells a bit of a story about what needs to go in the ads, whether it be from a visual perspective or from a copywriting perspective. Letting people know that it's a product, it's a service that everyone can interact with, making your visuals like a little bit less daunting for the person that may not think about trying it. I think what a lot of companies try and do is they're like, hey, we're super futuristic and look at all these flashing lights and all this stuff going on. And people are just like, holy shit, I can't do this. Like,
Yeah.
I'm going into the Matrix and they're going to kill me. Like, I have no idea
Right.
what's going to
Right.
happen. So maybe thinking about having visuals that are like a little bit more approachable, having people in a video that you don't necessarily expect to see in a VR thing, you know, the 15-year-old teenage girl interacting
Right.
with a game, and then people are like, oh, it's like an everybody can do this. Because I think you're
Right.
right. I think the hardcore gamers are gonna, I think the cost barrier to have the set at home is whatever it is, a couple $1,000. And I think the people that are into it are the people that have the consoles, that are the people that have the VR sets at home anyway. So to get that more mass appeal, stay away from anything that's overly flashy looking, overly complicated, overly intimidating looking,
Right.
and then make it feel more of a family friendly thing. Because even if people see that and they don't relate to it because they're like, no, I want to go in for like the hardcore gaming part, they're going to understand that that exists in your framework anyway. Oh,
Right.
we've got 200 whatever games. They're like, oh shit, well, we can go find zombies. That's not a problem.
Right.
But I would say make it more mass appealing from the visual and from the copywriting, and I think it would do really well with that more of a wider targeting.
Right. Okay. One of the things that I've heard, some people say is, in terms of where to advertise online. So right now we're doing like Facebook, Instagram, ads. We do head office is running our Google ads currently, but the thing that I've heard is that people, discover on Facebook or Instagram, but go to Google to buy. So what, um, should we be doing more on Google? Like where would you skew the spends?
Great question. I I would say I would say probably close to 50-50. Just because Google's going to be a little bit more of an expensive platform compared by comparison. But I think there's a lot of avenues to go, right? Like there's VR arcade, there's
Yeah, I mean, currently, if you Google us or Google anything to do with VR or arcade in Brampton, we do show up. Um, one of the areas I think we need to refine or get better in is uh, the outskirts Google. So if you're going to type, if you're going to type in birthday party ideas Brampton,
Mm-hmm.
that kind of thing.
Yeah, and so you guys have your, you
Yeah,
guys
it's
have
fairly
actually, so
catchy.
you guys have the organic, which is great, and the Google reviews are going to make a big difference for you as well.
Yeah.
And then you've got the organic and the ad up there. So
Yeah.
those are all really strong.
So
Oh, is
this is
this
what
you?
I find interesting. So you see so what the ad, and I don't really know how or why this is happening like this. I got to talk to head office maybe, but the ad says virtual reality arcade opening in Brampton this spring. So that was an article written about us in a local social media rag called
Oh,
Bramptonist.
right.
I shouldn't call it a rag. It's actually a pretty great site. They really promote everything good in Brampton, which is great to see. Um, and so this is like written quite some time ago.
Yep.
But what's interesting, if you go like on the Google page, if you noticed, it's showing the address for our
Mhm.
Mississauga location,
Right.
and I don't quite understand why that's happening.
Yeah, that's just user something. That's just them. It's
Them
just not.
being
It's just not that. Yeah. So because you can create a separate ad group
right.
specific to Brampton keywords and have it go to a specific location and have it go to a specific ad. So I think
Oh,
it's just somebody on that end is not that great at running them. No offense. Well, maybe a little, but uh, yeah, I
it
think it just needs. I think it just needs a little bit. The account needs some work, needs some
tweaking.
refinement because you can control all these things. Organically, you can't control it, right? Like whatever results are coming up in your organic side,
Yeah,
these articles and these you can't control that, but like a virtual reality is opening this spring. Like this should just be we're a virtual reality company arcade
yeah.
that's
Like I mean, this
open
is
now. Come
that's
see
that.
us.
Yeah, that article's old now, right? Like it's like
Right. But it's
if
still this
somebody
is
if
still
somebody
you guys are still literally like right now someone's choosing to pay for this to come up.
right.
This
And
isn't organic. This is I'm paying for an ad that says this that goes to the page. So I
yeah,
mean
and
I would say that
it could lead somebody to believe that we're not open yet.
yes. Yeah.
Right.
So I think cleaning that up. I think keywords like near me are really good and then having a geographic border for each location. But what needs to happen is a lot of, and I've worked with a lot of people that have franchises, and what happens is often the ad account becomes like a, hey, here's a whole big bunch of keywords, here's a whole big bunch of locations, and let's see what happens. Like you really have to create, each location requires its own campaign. And within that campaign, you've got your ad group. So VR arcade near me, VR arcade city location. You have birthday party ideas, those types of things. But then each one that has the key, like the Brampton in it, the word Brampton in it, needs to have a campaign that only points to that Brampton location. So it just feels like that account needs a little bit more
Speaking.
tidiness. And
Yeah.
I mean it should, yeah, it should. When I go to there and I see that the one is coming there, like I'm not inclined to click on that, right? And if you
You
said
think it's not
we're a
enough
VR,
now?
right, and you're competing with what were the other two, was the Rec Room
Uh,
and Palladium, right,
yeah.
which are
So
two.
Rec Room is open in Mississauga now, and Palladium just opened in Brampton.
Right. And so when you're fighting with brand names, you have to do a good job saying, "Hey, we're an experience that exists here.
Right.
You got to come check us out. You know, we've got locations across Canada. Like the ad needs to be less inquiry and more just like we're
Do
here
it.
and we're in the space. Come see
Right.
us." Um, but yeah, I mean, I think the birthday party ideas, birthday parties, Brampton. Yeah, you should be fighting with all the other. I mean, you'll fight with the Palladiums and the whatever. You also fight with
Yeah. Well, there's a bunch of
the
other
kids zoos
local,
and stuff.
you have a bunch of other local entertainment businesses. Um, Actually, if you want to, I don't know if you want to open it up and try that just to see. I think we do show up, but I don't think we have a specific ad for that or that runs under that.
So sports park. I don't know what that place is.
That's like a trampoline park.
Oh, got it. Right. So having a spot on, oops, having, I don't know if you guys are on Yelp already, but getting yourself on all the directories is a good idea. And
Yeah,
like,
I mean, we're on Yelp. We don't pay for anything there, but
no, don't. It's not. It's a waste.
yeah,
So yeah, you guys don't have an ad under the putting edge. So there's a whole bunch of different ones. Like this would be a great space to play because parents have heard their kids talk about VR and
right.
AR and they don't know
What
what it is. But like when you say, hey, we're this VR place that's kid friendly, that's great for birthday parties, like you'll win on that keyword all the time
could
because people will
could
be
it
really
just
excited.
be? Could it just be they have it, but their ad spend isn't enough? Like, because it's auction, right?
Could be. I couldn't tell you what's going on, but yes, it could be that there's people bidding more, and then you guys are too far down.
Right,
But we did see the other one, like your ad for the other keyword just came up, so there's you still have budget for the day.
right.
Um, and so yeah, I mean, I think taking a look, maybe having somebody take a look at their AdWords, or I don't know if they're open to that, but you know what I mean. Like just have someone go in, and make sure
Yeah,
they've
no,
got
I
the
mean,
right stuff
they're.
going
I
on.
mean,
But I
Health is
mean, those are
pretty.
yeah,
Health is pretty cool. Like they're. You know, we can tell. We can ask, hey, we want to do this. Like, we're gonna change this around, or we've heard this, or we were told this, and
yeah,
they'll look into it for us. It's not.
yeah.
It's not that they won't.
Yeah, just based on that first result on Google still being that old article makes me feel like somebody should take a look at it.
Yeah, yeah. Because well, yeah, I didn't. I actually, I never. I haven't seen it that way before. Actually, most of the time, like when I've tried and just tested, I've seen just like the control V ad. So I'm not sure how
Right.
that article is still showing up, and it just may have happened to be just a fluke when you did it at that particular moment.
Got it. Yeah, well, it's also going to skew it for you because Google knows that you're on your own website a bunch. So the results you see are going to be different and based on your location and based on the time of day. Like there's
Mm,
so many variables that dictate how that works. But yeah,
okay.
I mean, I think there's probably 20 key important keywords that are the things that you need to always be or as much of the time of the day you can. So anything that's arcade. Now the fact that you guys are organic is great. You guys probably rank organically for most of the keywords, so that's already going to be a good spot. But leveraging the power of the ads and having an ad and an organic and the map listing, it just increases your chances, right? It gives you a 3 out of 20 shot rather than the 1 out of 20 shot. So i
Right.
i still think buying ads for that type of thing, and then yeah, figuring out a way to make sure that people that are looking for birthday party venues, and then just the ad copy is the most important, right? Like, kid friendly, VR arcade, great for birthdays. Like people often write really generic
Right.
description copy for their ads, just, oh, this is the type of company we are, and they just copy and paste. But like each ad should be written based on the keyword pool. So you should have a group of ads that are all birthday ads. It's all the different birthday keywords, and then those ads should only have how you service birthday parties and how it's accessible for everybody and kids of all ages, or what, you know what I mean? Like I'm coming onto Google with a certain intent and I want to know where I take my kid for their birthday. I don't
Right.
care if you're the biggest franchise in Canada and you've got all these machines. It's like, do you do birthdays? Do kids enjoy your birthdays? Like that's all you should be talking about. And then on the counter to that is like when you're doing keywords about the VR experience, then you want to say, hey, one of the world's biggest franchises, all these games, all this equipment, because then I want to make sure, are you the coolest and the best VR bar or arcade that exists? So, the different, each topic needs a separate grouping. And so in that ad group, it contains all the keywords about that topic and the ads are written specific to that topic because there has to be that fluent experience. And then when they
Right.
land on the website, are they landing on the kids party page? That's, instead of the home page. So making sure that their experience searching for a birthday to getting an ad that's specific to birthdays to landing on a page that's, hey, we do birthdays. It's really important and it's often overlooked, even just the slightest amount. But as soon as you overlook the slightest amount, your conversion rate and your everything about it will drop off, and it can have a really, really bad impact, especially when you're paying 4, 5, 6 bucks for a click, right? It's
Right.
not cheap. So making sure that I would recommend having them make sure that experience is consistent.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I know I mean, that's one of the I guess difficulties when you're talking about you know a franchise or a business in a new industry, and not only that, but a budding franchise that's growing.
Hmm.
There's a lot of figuring out to do.
Yep.
And it's not a Subway, where there's everything's canned, everything's done, everything's like, you don't even think, you just run your location kind of thing. And your local ad spend is even figured out for you. Like, you don't have to deal with anything.
Right.
For with us, I mean, in that way, it's nice that we have more freedoms, in that we can go out there and as long as all we really have to do is just go to head office and say, hey, we want to try this out. What do you think? And they have an amalgamation of all the data, so they go, well, location XYZ tried it, didn't really do a lot for them, or location ABC did it. It was a big spend, but it seemed to drive long-term traffic, whatever,
Right.
right?
Yep.
So that's kind of the nice thing about joining a younger franchise, if you will.
Sure. Yep.
But it also is a hard thing because you're trying to figure out like everything as well, right?
Yeah, for sure. And yeah,
Um,
I mean, I'd be, as much as that is good information and it is helpful, be cautious of, because if, okay, so franchise owner in wherever in Mississauga or in Oakville tried that thing, but like, unless you know how the targeting was done, what was the video like? If you don't know all the pieces, we have a lot of conversations about, oh, this type of ad doesn't work, or that thing doesn't work, and just like,
yeah, I'm
are they
talking more
doing
about
it?
like non-social media type
Got it.
advertising. I'm talking about like maybe if somebody tried radio ads, or they
Mm,
tried currently we have this little bit of a different or interesting initiative right now where we've a bunch of our locations, including ourselves, have partnered with some grocery stores, and we've created these reusable tote bags. So we have like a Control B reusable tote bag because everyone uses those all the time now. No one wants paper bags anymore.
right.
So we went and we have a big charity event that happens in November. So I don't know if you're familiar with Extra Life, but Extra Life is a charity event run. It's a program of Children's Miracle Network. So it's a 24-hour gaming event on November 2nd and 3rd. And so we're promoting that. And so we go into the grocery stores, giving everyone a free tote bag. In there's information about the event.
Mm,
And now they've got a tote bag which is reusable that they'll keep for X amount of time, and constantly see our logos and information on it.
yeah, I love
So
that.
yeah, so that's an interesting one. Of course, we have to see how does this convert long term, and it's one of those things that we've just tried to do and see. We got it was actually part of us. I believe it was Wilfrid Laurier University, with their marketing. One of their marketing projects they did in one of their marketing courses was an analysis on us and how do we increase. And this was one of kind of the things that they talked about. So our head office kind of latched onto it, said, okay, this looks interesting. So we're trying it. Let's see what happens. But yeah, more so the non-social media stuff is what I'm talking about when I'm talking about like, do we run bus ads? Do we run,
Yeah.
radio, flyer drops, etc., that kind of things.
Yep. Yeah, that makes perfect sense. Yeah, I really like, depending on the price point, but local radio can be good for that.
Yeah,
Direct mail is a bit of a, it's a
yeah,
bit of
we
a
tried that in the
nightmare.
beginning. It was
I don't I
we
don't
did
like
it
it in any
once.
scenario.
We did it once. I mean, I know they always say in advertising you got to do it multiple times, but it just seemed like it was a huge waste.
Yeah, the price, and then the, are you actually getting distribution like they say? And it's just very, I don't know. There's something about it I don't like. I've worked with companies that have done it, and there's never a scenario where I was like,
Yeah.
yes, we should do this again.
Radio seemed to do better, but it
Yeah,
wasn't cheap because we were on,
right.
I mean, we're on one of the larger stations that was all over Ontario, all over Toronto,
Mm-hmm.
Z103.
Yep.
So we had a live to air when we opened, a week's worth of ads beforehand. We had ads running as a brand for all of our locations all through December last year. So we still get people that say that, oh, I heard you on the radio way back when, but I never got a chance to come in.
Right.
Um, so that was kind of so we're still getting people on that, but we don't get people going, oh, I saw your flyer like a year ago, or like, because whenever anyone comes in, another great source of data for us is that anyone who plays has to sign a waiver,
Right.
and everything's digital, everything's on a laptop, so we have all kinds of data that we can use. So that's what we use to help create the LTVs as well for Facebook. Um, and we have data, we have waiver data that says, how did you hear about us?
Right.
So
Do you guys do email sequencing that's like, hey, your birthday's coming up in a couple months. Do you want to come here? Because you have that on the waiver, right? The birthday.
yeah, yeah, we haven't to date.
Yeah.
We're very cautious about how much email we send.
Yep.
We do have like a monthly newsletter that goes out. Um, we're cautious because like you don't want the unsubscribes either, right? Like people get too much from you and they get annoyed.
No, I
Um,
agree. And I think for you guys, because it's that experiential thing, like once a month is probably the what I would do
yeah,
as well, as long as it's
we
like
like
decent
unless we're
content.
running like unless we're running a specific event or whatever. Like during our 1 year anniversary, we had another email, like a second email that went out because we had like a sale on for that week. Come in for a little bit of a discount.
Yep.
The charity event coming up, we'll have probably a couple of emails that go out for that. But
Right.
usually it's typically once a month.
Right. But I would think about, because you already have the birthday data, is like a month before, be like, hey, we'd love for you to come in for your birthday. It's 20% off your booking if you come and do it because we want to have you back in. Or
Right.
you want you to come in. And then that only goes out to people. Like you could have a trigger in your email sequencing that's like, hey, first name, it's your birthday coming up. Da, 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 da. Like you can automate that depending on what type of email platform you're using, as long as you can input the data point of a birthday, so you can
Yeah.
automate that. And I would do that with everybody, just as like it's a good shot. It's like saying happy birthday, and it's also trying to give them a bit of a deal. I think that'll convert super high for you.
Yeah, we've got like we're using Mailchimp currently for all of our processing. So I'm not sure what the capabilities there, but I'll speak to that office about that.
Yeah, if you're on a
We
paid
are. Yeah.
version of it, you should be able to. Yeah, I'm not a big fan of it, but it's simple.
Right.
It gets the job done. And if you've got you know, within your waiver system, you can export the contact with the date of birth with all the other stuff. That can all be absorbed in, and then you can set up sequencing based on that. But I think that'd be a really strong driver, is like a, hey, because it is, right, it's an experiential thing. It's something that's worth doing on your birthday,
Right.
right?
Right. Yeah.
So anyways,
Yeah, I guess we
good
could,
idea.
by extrapolation, we could probably also, because our waivers do connect back to the parent.
Hmm.
So if you have a child that has a birthday coming up too, we could probably get a list
Right.
out as well.
Yeah, and so what I and just making sure, because if you've got like the if the parent has to sign for them anyway, if you're
They
collecting
do.
their email, then you can say, hey, yeah, it's this person. You're
Yeah, the child doesn't have any email, but
right,
the parent, because the parent has to sign first and then add the child underneath them. So
right,
so we have the parent's email.
right. And you can literally set up sequencing that's like, if data point equals parent, then the messaging would go out saying, hey, it looks like Joey has a birthday coming up. And then if they don't, if it's just their data, MailChimp should be able to sequence that out saying, hey, it's your birthday coming up. We want you to
Versus
come
your
in
kid.
versus, yeah, yeah. So it should be able to do all that.
Right. Interesting. Okay.
Cool.
Cool. Yeah, no, that's a good one actually. I think I need to get them on that. We thought, I think, I think there's more we can do with your email, but again, I know myself, if I get too many from a company, it's unsubscribe really quick.
Yeah. And if you're not investing in content in a real way, and you're just like, hey, this is what's happening, or these are things, like nobody cares, like,
Mhm.
and you're not the community source of information for X, Y, or Z. So it's really hard. Like, if you are, so I mean, what you could do is say, hey, we're starting this series that's all about XYZ. If you want to know about what's going on in the VR world, you can take this other layer, right? Subscribe to this part of it. And
Right,
you could go into producing content and be a bit of an authority, but it's like, it just depends on how much bringing those and how much time you have to make the content to
right,
actually make it make sense. So
right,
whether that's like hey, we started a VR podcast that talks about the technology, or interviews developers, or does this, or talks to game makers, like you could do it on Zoom, film it, and
right,
a certain segment of your audience would want to know, and you'd probably get people that haven't been in yet that would opt into that. But then you have to produce a show. Not that
right,
it's that not that that's impossible. It's just like, in order to email people more than that once a month, or even bi-monthly, you have to be producing something that they care about, because
right,
otherwise they're going to leave the list for sure.
right. Yeah, yeah. Interesting.
Hmm.
So I mean, outside social, I mean I'm assuming that's where your strengths are, right? Um, do you have any thoughts or ideas of some other areas that might be interesting?
Yeah, I mean, I'm really big right now on sponsoring local things that don't expect to be sponsored. Um, so
Hmm.
I'm actually thinking about it for a couple of products of mine of like really small podcasts. So I'm working on a piece of software right now, and I actually want to go be like, hey, I know your podcast is tiny, but I'd love to be a sponsor on your podcast as this brand. So places where like they're not expecting anybody to come in, like smaller things with like a growing audience, get in before they're like thinking about monetizing, and that could be like, I don't know, local tournaments where you're like, hey, I'll give a promotional code for this and a little bit of money towards, I'll buy all the bottled water for the soccer tournament. You know what I mean? Like little things like that where you can invest like a couple $100 where they weren't expecting, they weren't looking for sponsorship, nor were they expecting to say, hey, as part of the community, we want to get more involved in different things happening.
Right.
But don't but going in at like conferences and events that already have a bunch of sponsors, anyone that already has a media card is going to be a bigger investment, and they're also going to have saturation within that market, right? Like, oh, we're looking for 10 gold sponsors and whatever, so you're just going to be this little icon, this little thing. Like, I would be the
Right.
key sponsor to stuff that there's 300 people that go to it. You know what I mean? So looking
Right.
for those opportunities, community events. um, so that's kind of one angle. It's the same kind of thing that you're doing with the grocery bags. It's that same concept. It's like, where can I hit a couple people at a time that are local that would be potential customers, and do it by just spending 100 or $2. Hey, I'll bring the whatever.
Pizza,
We'll
whatever.
we'll supply, yeah, we'll supply the pizza, or we'll supply the oranges for the soccer tournament. Just like, we have this little banner, throw it up on the field, and we'll give everybody a 10% or 20% off voucher for their first time. Like, that's a great way to do it, where you can get in for really cheap, and it has you just have a feel of like, okay, this is the guy that just came out and wanted to help. Now it's a little bit self-serving, but I think it gives like that local warm and fuzzy, and it works well because if you're local and they're local, it works even better than if you're across Canada, right?
Right.
So I would look for those types of opportunities.
Okay.
um the other thing I would do is, if you have times of the day, times of the week that are just really really slow, I would just make an effort to get people in there as much as you can. So I have a customer who, well, a former customer, but he had a pizza chain, a fairly large pizza chain, and he would every week they would send 2 pizzas to 10 different local businesses. Just call them up, say, hey, I'm going to deliver lunch today for free. I'm going to
Hmm.
bring 2 of this, because it's like his cost was like
Maybe.
$3,
Yeah.
$4 or $5, dropping it off. Then he was making an office super happy, getting people like really whatever. So if you've got like your Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday at lunch is like a really just shit time, like I would get a hold of a bunch of local companies and say, hey, are you staring at fluorescent lights on your lunch break? No, no, no. Come here for your hour lunch break, and we'll strap you up to a machine for free. And then what we'd like is, leave us a nice a review on Google, or record a little video testimonial after you leave. You can get one of those ring lights on Amazon
Yeah.
with like just your cell phone, and just have them be like, hey man, I came in and it was so much fun, and I you know never thought I'd do it, but I'm so glad I did. It was great.
Hmm.
Just fill the space. Like, it doesn't, if your costs are already there. You have to you
Yeah.
have
So
to have
one of
the
the things
rent.
people
Yep. Mhm.
one of the things people don't understand about our costs is we actually pay for every minute of gameplay. So,
Oh, got it.
so
That's
unlike
pretty big.
unlike when you buy a game for home, you play it to your heart's content.
Yep.
Doesn't work that way
Mm,
in the commercial licensing space for VR arcades. So every minute that a gameplay game gets played,
got it.
we're paying. There's
Got
a
it.
cost associated to that.
Sure.
Um, yeah, like Tuesdays and Wednesdays typically are quieter days. I mean, yesterday, oddly enough, wasn't. Um, but that's the weird thing, is that you don't know what's going to happen.
Right.
Um, Especially what I'm finding in Brampton, where I am, people are generally not very good at wanting to pre-plan or book online. You know, we're maybe 30 or 40% online booking, whereas some of our other locations are 50, 60% online booking.
Right.
So it makes it a lot easier when you have to plan staffing and all that stuff too, right?
Yep.
Prime example was the family day last year. I had 70 spots for the day because I'd opened up for it was a holiday, so I only opened up for a few hours, like 5, 6 hours, and I only had 8 spots booked going in. Like the morning of family day, like 9 a.m. I was opening at noon, I think. I looked at my bookings. I was like, oh, great. 8 out of 70 spots are booked. I'm like, well, it's not going to be that busy. By
Right.
the time the day ended, I had 60 out of 70 filled. And I didn't bring staff in because I said 8 out of 70, I can handle that on my own. I don't need staff.
Right.
So I ran like a chicken with my head cut off during the day. But it's also our first year figuring these things out, right? So next year, the family day coming up next year, I'll have staff with me because I know
Yep.
that it tends to be that day, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
For
So
sure. Yeah, but I
so,
do
so that's
think,
what I
but
mean.
I
So,
do,
but in general, like what you're saying, Tuesdays and Wednesdays, Mondays were closed, so Tuesdays and Wednesdays are a good day maybe to try something out like that.
yeah, because even if you think about like, if you think about the word of mouth that you get, people that weren't expecting it, those probably go well. Like the parent who came along with the birthday party and ended up jumping in and be like, oh man, like all my friends, we're gonna come back for a ladies' night and do it.
Right.
It's like just creating those opportunities. So even if there's a cost to letting them play for the hour, if it's not that big, just I think the word of mouth of like, I got this free experience. Now I might not come back and pay again, but I'm going to tell everyone at the office like, oh my god, you got to go try it. And if you, like I said, if you just open it up to say like, hey, this one day you can pick 4 people from your office to come in and do it for free, whoever that is, and just offer that like even once a month. I think just the word of mouth and the bounce around from that, just the exposure to it, and the oh well, was it really hard? No, it was reasonable. Like we were able to do it and we had a great time. So I think just giving people the opportunity to have the experience, especially during
So we
times
do
that you're
we do that in a fashion right now. First Wednesday of every month is demo day. And so you get to come in and at no cost, there's 3 different games that we have on demo for that day.
okay.
And if you're coming in not paying for a session, you come in and play, try those games out. Like it's a 20-minute session at no cost. So it's really kind of designed around people who are afraid of VR,
Yep.
and like you were saying before, like give them an opportunity to try and realize that it's not hard to do. So we get in the summer months we had a lot more people taking advantage of it. In the winter months, like since school started back up again, it's been a little bit quieter.
Mm-hmm.
But it's a Wednesday, first Wednesday of every month, so school's on and might not be the best day of the week for them
Got it.
as families. Okay?
Yep,
But you're
that
right.
makes
Try
sense.
and hit that up for corporate as well and say, hey, come on out.
Because yeah,
Yeah.
you know what I mean. It even could be a scenario where like the 4 people, the sales team or whatever gets their experience, and they're like, we got to go back here for a Christmas party or some other event later on.
Right.
Like it's just opportunity, and again, if it's like downtime where there's nothing going on, um, seems like it'd be worth it. So I think those 2 things would be probably like the least amount of work and the highest amount of impact, other than like having a paid campaign, like a fixed campaign of like sponsoring a sports team or paying on the radio. I think those things, just being local and acting local, like treating local like your home, and then just giving opportunities to people that probably would never have the exposure to the product, I think are 2 really strong things
Right.
offline that would work.
Cool. Yeah. No,
Cool, man.
that's good feedback. Thanks.
Awesome. Well, yeah, I think that's probably kind of all the thoughts. I think I'll send you the recording afterwards so you can test some of the Facebook stuff we talked about. But I think low budget, long term style ads would work really, really well. So I'll send you kind of the stuff that we talked about. But is there anything else? Any other thoughts or any other questions you had?
No, I think that's good info. Like I mean, we're doing quite a bit of stuff on Facebook, like you had mentioned. But I think there's some tweaks that you talked about that I think we'll give it a go and see how we can make that work. Having the idea of the post engagement with engagement and traffic on the same post, because I've seen that before. I've seen other ads come through, and I see like 30,000 people have viewed that video, and they've got
Yep.
like 70, 80, 100 comments underneath. I'm like, how do I get that?
Yeah, you
You
can
know,
you
with
can
the engagement comes more eyeballs, right?
yeah, and you can literally achieve that level of number within 45 days by running them in tandem, and then it just gets bigger from there. So that's how you see them. That's the hack. That's the cheat.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah. No, that's that was pretty key for me. Um, and then yeah, just I think we need to work on tweaking our Google a bit so that we can get the right thing showing up. But
absolutely.
yeah,
All right,
that was
perfect. So
very
we're
great.
awesome, man. So where can people find you?
So we're located at 239 Queen Street East in Brampton, so Queen and Kennedy area, or Queen and 410, depending if you know the area or not. Yeah, we've got 14 VR headsets in our setup. If you Google us, you'll see pictures of our inside of our facility. You can see it's pretty kind of futuristic and cool looking. There are a lot of VR arcades out there that haven't spent the money on kind of making a cool, inviting looking space, and I think that's all part of the experience. So we've definitely spent the money to make sure that people get in, and people always walk in for the first time and are like, wow, like just enthralled by the space. So yeah, 14 headsets. We can have up to 14 people playing at a time, but that's not a limitation on the terms of parties. We've done like BlackBerry when they had their Christmas event, we had 60 people out there. So, and they just rotate through.
Wow,
So it's we can 4,000 square foot space out there, and it's a pretty fun thing. It's very different, that's for sure.
cool, man. Well, I appreciate you taking the time, and it was great to meet you.
Thank you.
All right.